Nier Automata has been one of our favorite releases of the year thus far, but thanks to wobbly performance on PlayStation 4, we've been impatiently awaiting the PC version to come in and save the day. Of course, we approach this one with cautious optimism. Platinum Games doesn't have the best track record when it comes to PC ports after all, but even a mediocre port should still be able to eliminate the performance issues we encountered on Sony's console. Unfortunately, our first impressions were not especially positive due to an issue with the game's full screen mode. A fresh install of the game presented us with a squished image regardless of which resolution was selected, and we weren't alone. The most obvious solution here was to simply load up borderless gaming and force a borderless window mode, which did work admittedly. Thankfully, a fix also exists for the full screen issue as well. Jumping over to the Steam forums, we immediately ran across a patch created by user Chaldean designed to solve these resolution issues, among other things. This is the same user that helped improve various other PC ports as of late, including recent Tales games. We appreciate the efforts, Chaldean. Once we installed the patch, our resolution issues were eliminated and we could start playing, but it quickly becomes evident that this port has its fair share of limitations. For one thing, between our own results and the results of others already playing the game, it's clear that Nier is a demanding game and will require a fast PC to shine. But all of these issues were already present in the console code, and it scales as you would expect on the PC. So if you have a mid to upper end GPU for instance, you will be able to achieve an experience that definitely exceeds PS4 Pro. One of the most prominent issues we've encountered in the game is visible stuttering while exploring the overworld. It was a problem on PS4, and it rears its head on PC as well. While monitoring our system resources, it did appear as if the game code was freezing momentarily. When running at 1080p for instance, our GPU usage remains at the rather low 60% utilization, but every time one of these hitches occurs, we saw a momentary inverted spike with GPU usage going down to around 20%. No anomalies were visible on CPU, memory, or disk usage either. So playing a game from an SSD, which is what we were doing, doesn't really have any impact on this problem. This is a your mileage may vary kind of issue though. On our test systems, the issue is reduced comparing to playing on a PS4 for instance, but still not quite what you would want in a game like this. Some users are having better luck than us, and others are faring worse. Another issue lies in its cutscenes. Like PS4, all of the game's cutscenes are pre-rendered videos that were captured at a lower resolution and frame rate. These scenes are limited to 900p at 30 frames per second. Unfortunately, many users including us have run into severe playback issues when viewing these sequences. They become unbelievably choppy just seconds into the video playback. Out of curiosity, we did attempt to use another fix created by a different Steam user, and it did nothing to alleviate the problem. Considering that these sequences are used for major story scenes, the poor playback is disappointing. But aside from the stuttering that manifests in the city area and the FMV problem, the game does actually run very smooth. I played primarily on an i7-5820K with a GTX 980 Ti and was able to hit 60 frames per second with no problem at 1440p. This is with all settings enabled except for anti-aliasing, which we'll touch on in a moment. Okay, so maybe it's time to jump into the options menu then and see what's on offer. First up is Anti-Aliasing, which turns out to be a rather pleasant surprise. Nier Automata includes support for real MSAA, a bit of a rarity these days. Unfortunately, it's not really labeled as such, instead using the generic anti-aliasing label. MSAA is expensive, and the game's high preset defaults to 8x MSAA. So if you jump in and select this high preset and start playing the game, well, you might run into performance issues and not really understand what's going on. It's a great feature to include, but tying MSAA into a preset isn't a wise move, as some gamers may wind up with lower frame rates without realizing that anti-aliasing is the culprit. That said, a GTX 1070 class card should be able to maintain 60 frames per second at 1080p when using 4x MSAA. If you do opt to use MSAA, note that it does cause minor issues when used in conjunction with ambient occlusion. This is how LOD transitions are handled normally, for instance. But when MSAA and AO are combined, we see more jarring transitions instead. Perhaps this is related to the inclusion of a post-process anti-aliasing feature, which is tied to the ambient occlusion setting. Enabling ambient occlusion forces a form of post-process anti-aliasing, and it's a good implementation, so using this instead of MSAA at the moment is a great way to reach higher resolutions. I had no problems hitting 60 frames per second at 1440p with all options enabled except MSAA. The rest of the options menu then is pretty sparse, but ultimately an improvement over previous Platinum ports. For one thing, Nier fully supports arbitrary resolutions, which was never the case in any of its previous games. Just a shame that the resolution support is hobbled out of the gate, requiring a community-made patch to function properly in the first place. Then you have basic features like texture filtering, which behave as expected. Texture filtering is already pretty decent on the PS4 Pro, but the option to use a full 16x AF is much appreciated. And AF is a big deal in this game since Nier's game world features a lot of large, flat, open areas. The same goes for blur, which enables a nice object motion blur feature that is of course also present on the PS4 Pro, but not on a standard PS4. Then of course we have shadow quality, which has an impact on the resolution of shadow maps and the distance at which they are drawn. And for comparison's sake, the high setting is consistent with the console version here. One thing to note is that object pop-in is a problem in all versions of the game and cannot be alleviated via any of the in-game options. You can see grass and buildings pop into view on the PC just as they do on PS4. Ultimately, what we have here is a competent but not especially impressive port. The issues with the port mainly center on things like broken resolution scaling and performance problems while playing back the game's pre-rendered cinematics. Some other users I've spoken to have also run into problems where the game would lock to their display's lowest refresh rate in full screen mode. These types of problems are certainly frustrating for anyone that encounters them and do detract from the experience. But then we come to performance, which is mildly disappointing, but it's best to keep in mind that this is not an issue specific to the PC port. The PC version performs on par with the PS4 code, and the high requirements appear to be the result of bottlenecks inherent to the engine itself. A reasonably capable rig will be able to deliver performance that exceeds that of a PS4 Pro with a higher average frame rate and a nice increase in resolution. You'll just need to be prepared to deal with some of its potential issues, such as the hitching that we encountered in city areas. It is nice to see a Platinum game implement more of the standard features this time that you would expect in a PC port. Heck, it's even possible to play the game with a mouse and keyboard if you like, which isn't necessarily optimal, but it's nice that the option is available. In the end, Nier Automata is a very good game and one that is absolutely worth playing. Neither version of the game really offers up the performance you would want necessarily, but the PC version has the potential to offer the best experience if you have the hardware, and a little luck of course. Just don't expect cutting-edge visuals here or rock-solid performance. But with that, we've come to the end of this video. If you found it interesting, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Twitter. And until next time, this is John, signing off.